Today's episode is brought to you by elitefts.com. Founded in 1998 with the primary aim to live, learn, and pass on. Please help Elite FTS support this mission by smashing the like button, leaving a comment, sharing with a friend, and thinking of Elite FTS for your training needs. If you can put it in a gym bag or load weights on it, Elite FTS has it. Now, onto the show.
What's going on? I'm Dave Tate. We are broadcasting from the middle of the Elite FTS weight room, where the underground still thrives and you're part of the crew. It's time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk. And we're live again. No. This is now 86. I was right the first time.
Yeah, you're good. See, that's all we just needed to line that up. So the practice round is over. The warm-up sets are over there.
Yes.
So for those who didn't hear anything, which was everybody, I wanted to touch on a few of the housekeeping things before we get into this episode. First and foremost, Dave is wearing a brand new flannel here. I wanted him to kind of go over that a little bit too.
Yeah, it's a signature flannel.
Fashionista.
Yes. The red one that we brought in sold out first day. This one was brought in to fill the demand that left, I suppose. So it just took a couple weeks for them to get here.
Yep.
They are here. We just don't have them loaded on the site yet. There's another limited edition item, which are the Joggers, which should be loaded soon. You know, I'll just say that, right?
Sure.
It's easier to say that than to say, oh, we should have it loaded by the end of the day. And then it doesn't get loaded until next week.
Sure.
So they'll be loaded soon, but they are in-house, which is the first step.
Yep, that's good. I mean, those flew off the shelves. That was so quick. I'm excited to see what the response is to these. I like the color of these really a ton. So a couple other things I mentioned before. We had some comments about the smelling salts. The smelling salts are as aggressive as we have said they were.
Or more
so. There were some people that thought we were kind of playing that up a little bit. I got a few DMs recently saying how we weren't making that up. And some people, I think, were a little bit blindsided to the truth.
So was I. So don't feel alone.
Yep.
The peppermint.
So other than that, again, we've had a fairly busy time here at Elite, but it is meat week. Adam and I have the meet coming up this week. And I wanted to jump into how you have handled the week of a meet, right? Because I am running into the fact that I am crawling out of my skin. I'm excited that there's a train your ass off this weekend, so I get to clean the gym and constantly keep moving physically, so I don't have to just sit in my head and think about shit. That's the biggest thing that I'm running into is I feel like I could run through a wall, and the ability to stand still and sit still is a little bit much.
Everybody's a little different. Obviously, everybody's different when it comes to that. For me, it was just always, I didn't like competing. It was the part of the whole sport I never really cared a lot for.
Right.
All the rest of it. So I never really got that anxious or anything about it. What I liked about it personally was you can recover for once. It's like after 4 weeks of, there's the last 4 weeks, you're just chipping away, but you're never really putting anything back on. It's like you're, chiseling away a block of stone, but, and the erosion never gets fixed,
Right.
It's just, so it's always nice the last week, to feel better from that perspective, but then feeling worse from the perspective of gaining weight into the meet. So that was more a lot of people need to cut. A lot of people just aren't going to do one thing one way or another. I was the opposite. I had to try to fill a weight class. So those kind of preoccupied it. But the thing about the last week is there's nothing that you're going to do to make it go faster or slower. It's time is just time.
Yeah.
So but you can deflate the shit out of yourself with anxiety and all the other stuff. But I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of stuff with that I just don't understand, because obviously my brain is not somebody else's brain. I don't know how somebody
Sure.
else's brain processes some things. If, you know, if I feel anxious or if I feel like I have anxiety, I'm like, okay, I got anxiety. Now what to do about it?
Right.
You know, I'm not going to freak out because I'm freaking out. I'm going to just understand that, okay, I'm pissed or I'm this. Now what do I need to do to not be that? Or should I just be this for now? You know, so.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm running into is the fact that it's like, I don't think I'm used to having this level of energy. I'm sleeping great.
Yeah.
Like I just feel like the energy is higher up. And it's like, I want to do something with it, you know? So I mean, that's obviously a good thing, right? You want to feel good, as good as you can going into the meet, for sure.
That's why you have the week off.
Absolutely. And especially it's cool to be part of this process with somebody like Adam as well, because he's on the other side of things. He's trying to cut. He's adjusting a lot of things in this last week.
Yes.
And you know, the fact of the matter is like, okay, I have wiggle room in terms of body weight, so I'll be able to eat going into the meet. I'll be able to eat very well. Shit, I'll be fucking eating a sandwich on the scale. Yeah. Right? Like there's nothing really to worry about. It's just kind of getting there and making sure everything's squared away. So yeah, it's interesting, right? But I'm excited. We have Christian Anto is going to be helping us, which is great. So it'll be good to have another a seasoned vet.
Yes.
He competed this weekend. He just squatted 700 pounds.
Yes, I saw that. He did real well.
That was really, really cool. Danny did really well.
Yeah, she killed it.
That was, it's just cool to see the team members coming out and just putting up good numbers every single time. Oh, yeah. And just doing the damn thing. And I mean, Danny is going to be out here relatively soon, but the fact of the matter is, like, she didn't have that much time to prep for that.
No, she kind of caught this a little bit on a rebound, you know, from the bodybuilding, so it worked out well. I mean, it worked out real well.
Yeah. Now, in terms of, I mean, we have a lot of things going on. We have some guests coming out that we will potentially be touching on during this episode, but we'll see about that. But in terms of the new year, right? So we have January 1, quarter 1 of 2022 coming out. The last episode we were talking about like the content and, you know, how we're kind of shifting into some new areas, some new territories. What do you think is, for our listeners or for our coaches or for anybody that has any sort of social media, what do you see from your perspective is the trend going into the new year? What have you seen more and more? Because we're starting to see those fat dad functional posts coming back.
Trend as far as what do you mean by trend?
A trend in terms of what you are seeing in the social media world that was different from when you were doing this.
Without a doubt, you know, and I haven't been re-engaged enough to really know, right? So that's the big thing. And I will, I mean, I'll re-engage, but then I'll disengage, you know, it's just kind of my thing. Right. But I'll re-engage because the way that I see it is there's absolutely no way you can understand social media if you're not using it. You can't. Nobody's ever going to sell me that bill of goods ever again. Right. Because I've hired marketing companies and other people. And
guaranteed to do blah, blah, blah.
No, they don't even know how to fucking post. You know, they don't have a clue what's going on with anything. So the portrait mode is that's killing it right now. Right. So your Instagram stories, your TikToks, your YouTube shorts, right? Yes, the portrait vertical stuff is absolutely destroying it because it's filling this gap where it's micro content. Right. So we've already seen this happen in the tech space to where you had featured articles, then you had articles, then it kind of went to blogs, then it went to micro blogs, which you still kind of see a little bit of micro blogging on Instagram. But what you see more of now is they're not even micro blogs. A lot of them that I saw were one word, you know, so they've gone from, you know, a micro blog of maybe 2,200 characters, and then it's scaled down, and then it's scaled down again, then it's scaled down to like 3 or 4 sentences. Now we're starting to see words, which means that, you know, I'm not saying that, I'm not telling people what to do with their social media because everything's going to have a different identity and different things work differently on different channels. But what I will say from, if they're a creator, you know, the most competitive landscape right now is it's the portrait mode. You know, that I don't think that the long form content like podcast or longer YouTube videos are going to go by the wayside. I do, you know, this is just me, and fortunately, we don't have to rely on the monetization from any of this shit, because it still doesn't even pay for half a person. But that competitive landscape is going to, it's going to be I think what people are going to see, if I'm to guess and just to link forward thinking, is people are going to make more money creator wise on portrait stuff than they're going to landscape, because that's just how the phone is set up.
Right.
So if you look at how most people are digesting YouTube now and different videos like that now, you know, there's more and more posts that are done in portrait mode. They don't have to turn the phone. Granted, people are still going to turn the phone for the other kind of stuff, but
Sure.
at what point in time, and just look at the trend, how everything's gone from big to small, harder to easier. Just look at that trend and then tell me that flipping a phone is asking too much of somebody.
That's crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
It is, you know, so if in some creator's mind, it's like, look, if they have to twist the phone, and this is where we're going to go, if they have to twist the phone, they're not going to bother watching it. And, you know, but so that's that, but you gotta, I don't want to get in the weeds too much with it all, because, you know, YouTube is competing with Netflix too, you know, so there's long form, you know,
Right.
so I think that what's happening right now is you have a lot of the different companies trying to be everything to everybody. So they're trying to do everything from that portrait short all the way to longer form content or podcasting and stuff like that. You know, I was just told the other day that YouTube's making a huge push into podcasting.
Podcast space?
Into the podcast space, which is going to change all that as well. So that's what I see going there, is that, and the other reason why I see it going there is it's fucking easy, right?
The barrier of entry is so low.
It's easy. You just grab a phone and you film it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that fucking easy. There's obviously always going to be more to it, but in front of a lot of other pieces of content, there's multiple steps that have to happen for that to actually, you know, come to light. When you start removing those steps that happen before that content comes out, the content becomes easier to produce.
Right.
It becomes more accessible for everybody.
Easier to digest as well.
Yes. And everybody can produce it then, you know, so just the fact of, say this live, right? So we can do this live like this, or I can sit down, put my phone on a tripod and hit live and just film myself.
Right.
You know, and yes, they're completely different things, the way that they work, but which one, depending upon the brand, you know, and how you want to brand your company, which one's going to be more authentic than another one?
Right.
What kind of brand impression do you want to put out? That plays into the social media aspect of the question as well.
Yeah.
Is, you know, what is the brand identity behind all the content that's being pushed out, and how's it being pushed out? And then how's it being, what I call lassoed? You know, how's it being contained? Because there's no doubt, and I learned this 20 years ago just with the articles and with quantity, people will debate me on this one. Quantity will always fucking beat quality. Every single fucking time.
Well, we see that like on those new forms of content that you're talking about, right? On the vertical videos, on the like TikTok just tells you what video, like if you just swipe, like you can be there indefinitely. It will constantly feed you content.
Yes. Now, so if let's say if you're using that as a platform, and we actively want to compete, you know, with other brands that are in our space on TikTok, and one brand is, you know, putting out 4 a day, and we're putting out one every 3 days, we lost.
Right.
Without a doubt, we're done. You know, we shouldn't even do it, you know, so that's a big part of it. But it goes into the branding and what you're trying to do, where it's the number. I mean, a big change over November just for us was the number of pieces that went out. You know,
It was 77 or something on YouTube.
Well, that's just YouTube.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
so then there's hundreds on Instagram, and there's all this, and then it has the direct correspondence to everything. Now that dials back down, and say it's the quality, people will say, well, that quality isn't good. And I won't disagree with that. You know, there's a lot of things that we probably put up, and I'll keep on YouTube, because that's where people are watching this, right?
Yeah,
that
right,
we put up on YouTube. That's kind of like, you know, it's just Dave with his phone, just recording the whole thing. And so I'll put that, then I'll dial it back and say, okay, cool. Let's only do the highest quality. How many can we do a week?
Drops that number.
Right.
Now.
So now it drops. So, okay, now it's going to drop to what? 3, 4. So to get the same quantity that we put out, to be able to increase the output, I got to hire somebody else.
Right.
So now it's going to cost twice as much to get just a, you know, it's not going to be the same difference. So what's the easier way, you know, to be able to flip it? Because again, you can have YouTube's a weird place. Social media alone's a weird place, because, you know, creators are going to look and they're going to say, well, look, this is what so-and-so does. They got 1 million followers. I need to do that. So then they end up putting fucking 10, 15 hours into editing of one video, and they put up 2 videos per week, and their channel doesn't do a fucking thing.
Right.
But they'll never go back and look and see what these people were doing 15 years ago, which you can do.
And the shit that they're doing for 1 million fans now is based around their need to work with 1 million sets of eyeballs.
Well, and they have the revenue to be able to
Right.
have multiple editors, and when each video is making money, there's money that can be spent to produce the video. You know, when you're in this great deficit, which is what most people are, you know, on YouTube, it might cost $100, $200 to make one video, and then you get $25 back on it if you're lucky.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that is concerning, not necessarily concerning, but I guess I don't really know a better word to say for that. It's something that needs to be thought about, is the overall attention span of the viewer, right? So if, for example, someone gets well known for their 30-second, 15-second clips and there is no way to dilute those, or not dilute those. There's no way to extract more value out of those, right? So I think what we do is what we're starting to do better and better is have the longer form that you then can pick.
But you got to do it though,
right?
Because I've been down this road many times. You can have the longer form, that's just repurposing content, which is actually kind of like content marketing 101.
Right.
You create the big piece of content, then how many sub pieces can you get? So when I'll audit content, say if it's a podcast or a guest, it's like, okay, how much did it cost? How many staff hours went into producing this? How many pieces were produced? So some of the guests come out, 3 pieces are produced. And it's like, okay, we produced 3 solid pieces out of this, and it took 3 people 2 days to do it. So you got 50 staff hours before the editing. What did those 3 pieces bring back?
Right.
It's never even fucking close, right? It's not close. It's like, well, fuck, that was a waste of everybody's time to be able to do this. Unless, now out of those 3 pieces, we're able to pull 40, you know, IG story shorts or even 5 smaller videos, right? So then out of that, when you look at the return, so say I'll look at those videos and say, okay, those 3 videos had this much engagement and this much revenue. And so say that's $150, but we have, you know, $890 going into it. That sucks. I have nothing else to add to it. Now, if that was stripped out,
right,
you know, and then there were 5 other videos, now I can add all those impressions with that. If it was shared on Instagram just as a reel or a short, I mean, right there, most of those are 20, 30, 40,000. And if they get fucking 10 times the engagement is the actual YouTube video. But so that increases that ROI substantially. Right. But this is my but. You have to do it. And most don't. And we don't, you know, so that then becomes when you're looking to audit, and when I look at big projects, and guess and stuff like that, that's the first thing that goes through my mind is, okay, what's this? What's the cost? What's the difference? What's that going to be? And I don't, at this point, I don't even think about any of the repurpose stuff, because if I think about it before it gets done, then I miscalculated. You see what I'm saying? So I can sit here and say there can be 10 repurposed, right? Then they never happen. But I put that into my equation on how much time and how much effort is going to go into that piece of content.
Sure.
Right. And so, because bigger projects become more difficult, you know, for that to happen. But you're 100% right, but 100%. But the application of that is not easy.
Yeah.
Or I don't know.
Well, yeah, it's a tough situation, right? But at the end of the day, like for example, like we have 2 bigger people coming out next week, and the idea is, and just a little inside baseball information about it, we have about 10 videos that we're looking at, but we have sub videos based on those videos and clips based on those videos, and so we're looking at potentially 50, 60, 70 pieces coming out of these couple days of work. And it's like, that makes the equation so much better because of the fact that
if it happens.
No, for sure.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
I mean, that's because it's an interesting dialect for people to listen to, because I can hear that, but when I hear that pitch, I'm only looking at what the 3 main ones are.
Right.
Because to me, the other ones will never happen. Right. So I'm not saying, you get what I'm saying?
No, yeah.
Based upon past history, those other ones rarely happen. We are outsourcing just clips for the table talk,
right?
Which has the timestamps. You get what I'm saying? So now having greater capacity, you know, and more people helps, which is why we pimp the limited apparel and all the other stuff, so we can keep staffing up to be able to do some of these things that we're talking about, because resources become, you know, that issue with that. But that is how people should think. So let me dial that whole back and say that is how they should think. But as somebody that's been in the content space for 2 decades, don't get frustrated if it doesn't happen. You know, if you're that person, because I can go back and say we've had long form articles. Every article that and actually for a while there, we were going back to old articles and creating microblogs and putting them on Instagram. They did really, really well. But see, somebody has to go do that. Right. You know, somebody has to find the article, then they have to take the meat of the article, then they have to post it up there. And that's repurposing of that original article, which is the same concept that you run into with the video, is how many, with the article space, I used to think, how many out of one solid article, say 3,000 word article, how many Facebook posts could we get out of that? How many fucking Twitter quotes? Because it's really just one piece of information. Yeah. How many poll quotes could we get out of there that we stick with an image that could end up actually going into a different article to be able to link back to that article? So all this it's important, and it's important to do, but it's like I said, you can't, if you're the content creator, don't bank on, I don't want to say don't bank on it, because to say it's never going to happen is false as well. But don't count on it when you're doing your cost analysis of what it is, right? So say you're going to pay somebody to write this 5,000 piece feature masterpiece, and that's going to cost X amount of dollars, and maybe it's more than you can afford. You know, it's, and I'll keep it with this space now. So what is the agreement that there is with that author? Is it first time publication rights? So you can just publish it in its entirety and that's it. That's what it's done. Or are just open rights where basically you can do whatever you want with the article after they send it to you, because then that can become gold, right? So one article can end up just, even if you want to outsource one of our authors, an outside submission author, anything like that, to submit stuff to us, and those articles that they're pushing to us, I would say within each article that I've read, there's at least 3 to 5 microblog Instagram posts with each one.
And that you could direct back to the article, back to the site, back to whatever.
Or they can use for their own content.
Right.
You know, it's just what you don't want to have happen is what I call content wash. So you complete the piece of content, send it off to whatever it's going to go off to, and then you're just done.
It's done.
Yes, because there's so much more that could be. So if, let's say, the publication company, the media company, say we don't, like, so somebody comes out, and Swede's done this. So somebody comes out and we create a video, you know, and it's we did this So You Think You Can with Swede. And man, he's been breaking those apart, putting them up on his Instagram, putting them up as shorts or smaller videos. A couple of them went basically viral on TikTok. Now it's, I can sit there and say, well, fuck, we should have been doing this.
Right.
But he has every right. We allow them to be able to do that themselves as well, which is a whole other avenue. That if you can't get it done, then can the people that you're having put it, can they get it done?
Right.
Now, you won't get the views, you won't get the engagement, but you still get the exposure.
Now, how much, as people who maybe coaches or whoever are trying to build their brand or trying to do whatever they want to do with getting their name out there, how impactful or how much in your head do impressions cost? Right? Eyeballs, right? Because there is a certain amount of, like, you can make a video that has X amount of views, but it's like, how many views will that get over its lifetime? How many impressions does it have on the people with the logo? How many, you know what I mean? There are some certain intangibles to the marketing process that are hard to calculate. Granted, I'm not a fucking marketing anybody. Right?
Impressions definitely matter, but they still got to be the right impression. So what is within the impression? So every company's got a logo, you know, so how is the logo in the impression? Or, you know, if a gym's been built in such a way and put together in such a way that the owner has half a clue marketing wise, then no matter what video is taken in that gym, people should know what gym it is.
Right.
There should be identifiable factors that when you see it, you're like, oh yeah, that's Dragon's Lair from Las Vegas, or that's, you know, Redcon from Florida, or that's, you know, you just know because it's just the way it's all been laid out. With those impressions, they get impressions and they get branding off every video everybody takes that ever walks in that gym. Absolutely. Because they're getting that. Now, it's not a sale, but it's an impression. Now, and they're good impressions. So if it's somebody that's new to the space, there's multiple things to take into consideration here. The first is, what do you want to be known for? Right. Right. So yes, you need to have humor. You need to be personable, you know, authentic, all that stuff. I'm going to turn the heat off. But but you don't want to be known as the fucking slapdick, and that's all you are.
Well, that goes back to the quality and quantity thing, right?
Yes.
There's always has to be. Quantity will win in terms of impressions. That's just how that works, right? But you got to be able to say that the type of impression will increase, or your ability to get the impressions you want will increase with the quality, right?
Yes, and the higher the value of the commodity, then the less slapdick it has to be. Right. Right? Because if you're asking a premium rate for a service that you offer, yes, there has to be a balance where there should be some of that just kind of joking around. People need to see that you're a human. You know,
for sure, absolutely.
So they need to see that. There has to be that, but it has to be balanced out with the other part.
Yeah.
So,
and I think there is, in regards to the information we put out there, is like there in what you've done for years is you are unapologetically you, right? It's like you are who you are and like what you stand for and what what you believe in. And it's that message has to come through, and it does, right? Everything you put out is like, I can pick out a Dave Tate article, like fucking that, right? It's like, oh, I hear that voice. I know what he said, you know? And I think that's something that's developed, and I think there's a lot of people on the internet, you've seen it, especially with all the fat dad stuff that you've been going over, is like, people don't have that voice. People don't.
I think they do. It's just.
It sounds like everybody else's voice.
I don't think they want to lean into it. So it's, people know my story. I grew up with people telling me I'm a fucking idiot, stupid, retard. I don't want to go down that whole path, you know, but being told, when I started to write articles, can I remember when TC Loma reached out to me? I was actually writing for Deep Squad. I was writing for somewhere before, but it was the first like real person, you know, not real person, but real. I'm sorry to all those people I was writing for beforehand, but it was the first bigger publication that reached out, and I'm like, I didn't know what to say, you know, because I just like, we need to talk, man. And so I got on the phone with him, and I'm like, I'm not really good at like writing in English and spelling and grammar, and you know, there's a lot of things that I'm not going to make excuses for that I will, you know, say dyslexia and all this other stuff. But if I really cared enough, I would have fixed it all. I don't care enough to fucking fix it. It is what it is. There's editors now. So I'm trying to explain all this and saying that if I send this to you, you're going to think I'm a fucking idiot, you know, just like everybody else. And I remember him saying, I don't give a fuck if you write this on a napkin. You know, just give me the information, and then we'll talk for a little while. Let me get an idea of what your voice is. And just kind of took it from there. And then I did learn some writing tips along the way. But the point was, when I went into this and I'm like, shit, I'm going to be writing for these people, I can't hold my own in a debate. So if we're going to debate on exercise science or nutrition or any of that shit, if we're going to sit down and I have to debate some PhD or whatever it is, I'm not going to hold my own in that debate, because I don't remember things that way. I've never remembered things that way. You know, when I went to college, when I went to school, when I read things, I'm only trying to find answers to the questions I have. How do I get stronger? This is what I need to do this. How do I fix this? This is how I need to do to fix this. And so I know the end result, but I can't go into the weeds on how to get there. So my whole thing was, if I try to write like these other guys are writing, that would have my ass if we ever got into a debate. Intellectually, they would eat my ass. I can't write like that. I need to just be who the fuck I am. Right. That way, if we're on a stage someplace or in a conference somewhere and some roundtable discussion comes up and I end up being in a debate, I'm just the fucking idiot meathead. You know, so I can debate with them all goddamn day long, because I'm not trying to be somebody I'm not. You know, so if I had to, I could default on, well, yeah, so how much did you squat? Yeah, you know, so I could always fall to those low-hanging fruit, stupid-ass things that only make the other person mad, which throws them off of their game. But so what I'm trying to say is, for those people that are writing and they're trying to find their voice, they're not really trying to find their voice. What they're doing is they're looking at other people's voice and seeing how they can modify it to fit theirs. What they need to do is to say, I need you to just write this who the fuck I am. Because if I ever get called out on it, I don't have to remember something I don't know. I don't have to backpedal on a lie that I told. If it ended up being a lie and I was wrong, I can just say, fuck, I don't know, I was wrong. You know, so it puts you in this advantageous position with your peers, which is an important thing. It shouldn't be. Looking back, it shouldn't be. But it is an important thing when people are coming up in the industry, which is fucked up, and we all know it if they've been around a while. Because the last people you want to impress are your peers. Well, they don't care. Exactly. You know, the only people you want to impress are the ones that you want to help. But that's all part of that, you know, climbing the mountain process of that education of, you know, how to get into these certain positions, or how people think they need to be in those certain positions. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to kind of clarify the idea that you just brought up, and it's the whole idea of writing for your peers versus writing for the people you want to help, right? Writing for your potential clients, making a video for your potential clients, as opposed to, you know, they have that same sort of thing in stand-up comedy. You can tell when somebody's trying to write the jokes for the other comedians in the room versus the people paying to be there. And it all boils down to, I've seen a lot of it just in the social media space, and I've fallen victim to this as well, is like,
are you trying to be right or are you trying to help somebody? Right?
They're trying to, I don't even know if they're trying to be right.
It's like they're trying to be not wrong.
Yes, that's a better way to explain it.
Yeah, so the idea of it, and the reason I enjoy your voice when you write in the articles that you've put out is because you have a very clear directive with the article. It's like, this is the problem we're trying to solve, and this is how I would solve that problem, right? And it's a very clear start to finish sort of thing, as opposed to, and I've run into this with getting questions on Instagram or getting questions on even the Q&A here, like, it's like you start overthinking things, and it's like, just help this person. It's like, give them one piece of information that'll help them with that situation. Yes, you can say, well, it depends. And we say that a lot, but at the end of the day, it's like, okay, well, we can't answer every situation for every piece of information.
Well, no, you can't, but and every answer is going to start with it depends.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you stop, because if somebody's asking said question, and the first answer is it depends, there's probably 1, 2, 3 scenarios this has a high probability of fitting in. Right. So you just answer a couple of those. You're going to be wrong 60% of the time, 70%, whatever it's going to be, but you're probably going to get it right. So I would do it this way in this case, I would do it this way in this case, and kind of move on that way.
Yeah, I mean, and you gain that knowledge through experience, right? Through the actual hands-on experience, because you're like, oh, I remember this is a situation that came up with this something very similar, right? You've always said, like, you're not going to memorize the book. If you need to look something up, you just fucking look something up.
Yes.
Right? And having those questions asked of you kind of brings out the almost the Rolodex of situations that you've been in with this similar thing that came up, and it allows you to kind of pick through those and say, oh yeah, this thing happened when I did this and this, like, these are things to look for, and that's where the nuggets of that knowledge come from. Yes.
And I think that the other piece of this is we hear it all the time that you should meet the athlete or meet the client where they are.
Right.
Okay. Well, there's with that comes the assumption that you're here and they're here. So you need to come here to be able to meet them where they are, where what's not being presented in a realistic fashion is what makes you think you're here.
Right.
So if you have to meet the client where they are, then shouldn't they in return expect to meet you where you are? Right? Because very well, you could, in many cases, know less than what your client is, but that's not why the client's coming to you.
Right.
So they're coming to you because maybe accountability, they can't stay tight on their diet, mobility,
they need to just clarify a problem or whatever, right?
Yes, they just clarified, or maybe they're going to diagnose it a little bit differently. I reached out to John Russin, not because I wanted help with the strength and conditioning part. I wanted to be looked at and perceived under a different lens, just to see what that is.
Right, I like that.
Because what's that lens going to look at me as? What's this lens going to look at me as? Then we can kind of work together on, where to kind of go from there. Where that whole process of, does that make sense? What I'm trying to say,
it's just that perception shift, that it helps you see a situation through someone else's eyes or someone else's angle. They can, and when I say angle, I mean like it's not better, worse. It's a different position.
Well, yes, and it's I guess another way to look at it is, let's say said client, said athlete has been participating in the sport or strength and conditioning, whatever you're coaching of them, and they've been doing this for 10 years. Say they're 18 years old, started when they're 8. So 10 years, they've been doing that. So they've been training themselves for a decade.
Yeah.
That's a lot of hours.
Fucking A.
That's a lot of hours. They've been training themselves longer than you've been training them if you were just hired. All right. And if you even just train them for a year, you know less about training them than they know about training themselves.
100%.
So they need to meet you. You see what I'm saying? So when you want to talk about who needs to come down to whose level, they need to come down to your level, because you have no fucking idea.
You don't know anything about them.
What they've know about themselves, to where that's when that's made, and that there's a lot of factors with that. But when that connection's made is when the biggest progress gets made. And
yeah, no, I agree. And one of the things that I think people overlook when they're working with somebody for the first time is like a lot of younger coaches and less experienced coaches will want to be like, all right, well, we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and this changes all this shit, as opposed to a more veteran coach be like, all right, what have you been doing so far? Cool. Has it been working? What hasn't been working? Like they ask more questions as opposed to trying to fit them into what they think they need without all the information.
Yeah, I'm thinking how much information you could gain if you knew they were going to be consistent. So say they're going to come in 4 days a week, and all you did for the first couple of weeks, and I'm not suggesting anybody to do this because I don't know how you would sell it, for one thing, is just do what you normally do. You just watch them, for 8 training sessions, just watch what they do.
Yep.
Don't say a fucking word. Watch how they do their pull downs. Watch how they do their warm ups. Watch how they do their main lifts. Just watch the shit. Take notes. Think of what you would fucking learn in 8 sessions. You're going to learn more in that time period, especially if you could communicate with them and say, well, why did you decide to do this instead of this? Holy cow, the amount of information you would amass is just tremendous.
Right.
And from that alone, without even designing a said program, you can just slapstick shit together for 4 weeks and have them breaking all kinds of records and everything.
Right, because you're in a position where you can physically see their decision making, right? In a questionnaire, someone can tell you whatever the fuck it is they want to tell you, right? But when it comes to rubber to the road and they're doing the thing, you can really start to piece together missing pieces or trying to understand from their perspective where that decision making is coming from. Yes.
Now, this is going back to the original discussion on the social media. What we're talking about here is selling service. So that would be selling the training service, in-person service, selling some type of personal type service. So what do you think is going to be more engaging to the potential consumer? Knowing that they can trust you to be on the same level because you're a human, or seeing you blab off, 2-3 minutes of jargon that's trending at the current time, or taunting off about how you're so much better than all the other online trainers, or I'm just trying to think of all these other, or putting up, freaky exercises that nobody's ever seen before.
Right.
Now, a lot of these things have their place, they're attention grabbing, but when I see things like that from other influencers, the first thing that I'm going to look at is, okay, that's interesting. What's their end marketing game here? What is their goal? What do they sell?
What's their product?
Oh, it's an ebook. Oh, it's a large product. So it's a product that can appeal to great masses.
Yep.
It's very scalable. Okay, now what do you need to sell something that's very scalable, that you need to sell to a lot of mass people? You need attention getting shit.
Yes.
You're not going deep, you're going wide. You just need that wide brand exposure, because percentage based, a certain percentage is always going to buy. So if you exponentially increase the percentage of eyeballs, exponentially increases the number of buys. Yeah. Okay. That's that. Now, if it's a very, and that's a very, a service oriented, very service, or say you're charging $500 phone consults. So it's a higher end consulting type service. That why doesn't work. It's got to go deep. You got to get their attention. They got to see that you're a human. They got to see that you're actually a caring person. They need to see that you're not training 800 clients a fucking month. They need to see that you're engaged. They want to be engaged with you. Now, how does that play into portrait mode marketing? You fucking kidding me? You're right in their face. You're right in their face.
You need to build the connection.
Yes, it's not, I mean, it's going to be uncomfortable for many people, but compare that to an image Like just say your stock Instagram, not stock, but a lot of people will get professional images to put on their Instagram, then they write their captions.
Right.
So professional image and then caption on Instagram, is that going to sell that $500 consult? Or is it going to be the repeated, you know, here in your face, we're talking kinda, you know, on a screen, but kinda, it's like FaceTime, but they're not really there.
Right.
So
yeah. And the other thing is, especially if you're like that higher end or that service oriented business, you have to show that you can solve their problem. Like at the end of the day, like you're selling results, you know, and it's, if you're,
I don't even know if you have to, I do want to back that a little bit. I don't know if yes, you want to be able to solve the problem. Yes, you want to be in strong belief that you can solve the problem, but you got to be careful with that, because any buyer in their right mind knows there's always a chance that you can't.
Oh, for sure.
So I think when you're humble enough to be able to say, look, I think we got this. We got this. I think we got this.
Absolutely.
Because there's two sides to this. You may have the solution to the problem, but they're not compliant, which means you don't really have the solution to their problem.
Well, right.
But,
yeah. It's
but it is there.
That. And one of the things, I mean, just from my own personal experiences with low back clients, I always start with a phone call, right? So always talk to them on the phone, and usually it lasts about 2 hours, just because I can't not just get as much information as possible. And I promise you, this is the worst when it comes to sales, but I am usually the one solving their problem within that 2 hour free consult on the phone. And I tell them they don't need me. They just need to do this thing and they'll feel better, right? Because I'm not going to put them in a position where it's like helping them is more important than other shit. Like it's not good marketing. It's not good sales. But at the end of the day, like if I can help them with their problem without the need of jumping into this a very different situation, it's like I'm going to do that.
No, but who are they going to go to if they have a bigger problem in the same sphere?
Right.
You know, so
yeah.
It kind of can play on itself.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like it's almost like a means of sifting out different types of clients, right? Or real potential clients, because it's like, okay, well, let's try this. Even before we start working together, there's a money exchange. Just try this, because that allows me to see like, okay, they are willing to do work. They are willing to do the little things. They are willing to commit. Now we can have a better conversation, and now we can really get to the heart of it. Because a lot of the times they're looking for someone to solve their problem without doing the work, right? Right? They hear like, oh, this guy's going to fix my low back, or this guy's going to get my squat to 800 pounds. Or it's like, no, they're going to be shepherding you through the process. Or if they know what the fuck they're doing, they're going to be with you along the way for the process. And you guys are going to have that back and forth, and it's going to be that relationship. But there are people that jump on a phone call and they're like, what are you going to do for me? What is, and it's a very different conversation. And it's like, okay, we'll try these things on your own. And in a week or two, come back and we'll have another conversation. Right.
Which they more than likely won't.
Exactly.
So, I mean, that's just vetting out the client, because it's, you have conversations like that, you're kind of already immediately told that they haven't Googled anything to be able to better the situation that they're in, so they think there's a magic cure,
right?
That's out there.
And one of the things is just, especially if, I mean, this is probably more for clinical people that work with people that are hurt or have an injury or something, is the first thing that I learned from Dr. McGill in general was like, you have to let them know that you understand their situation. Is like, Dr. McGill, the first thing he does with a client is watches them get out of their car, watches them come walk to the door, watches. And then someone goes, oh, my low back hurts. He's like, oh, where? And they point, and he goes, oh, right there. And he touches it. And he's like, this spot right here, your back hurts there. And it's like, oh shit. Like that level of understanding goes such a long way that for a potential client or potential, whatever, but it's that level of connection relationship that I think shifts their focus from this guy's just trying to sell me this thing, or he's really trying to help.
Yes. And you gotta, I mean, that's the weird thing with this whole fucked up industry like it is, because nowadays, by the time somebody, unless they just get lucky, by the time somebody does get to a good online coach, they've already been through 3 or 4 bad. Right. So, and they don't know how much it was because of them or how much it was just because the coach sucked. You know, they don't know.
Yeah.
And it puts the whole industry in a real weird place, because you're trying to vet on your end, they're trying to vet on their end. There's no real good vetting mechanism to be able to, you know, have accountability, you know, with that. Plus, we've already talked before about the pricing structures are terrible,
right?
Which creates its own inherent problem of lower quality to a point where I think people come in and start to build a client base and probably give great quality. I mean, a rough suggestion I have with anybody with online coaches is find somebody that's been around, that's done it themselves, but just started doing this online coaching gig, right? Just fairly kind of new to it, because they're going to go out of their fucking way.
Yeah.
You know, they're too much. You know, they will do what I would probably tell the person, you're doing too much.
Yeah.
But they'll do just a greater value. But then as they get more clients, they start to realize, I can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
You know, and it becomes this weird where we don't know what the end of this is going to be. It's not going to go away. It's going to get better. You know, everything in a competitive structure, you know, I'm a capitalist. Everything gets better with competition.
No,
so,
for sure.
You know, it's just a weird thing.
Yeah. And to kind of circle back to the social media about the quantity over quality, right? Like, now there are apps coming out for personal training and coaching, and that are like $89 a month, and you get to work with somebody multiple times a week. And it's these systems that are obviously based on competition are developing. It's like, now you can get an app and it comes with an Apple Watch. Now you get to track it. You know what I mean?
And that's why though. So it's that for the people that I know and the people that I personally know, those are going to fit its place, and you're going to compete with Apple. I mean, you're going to compete with fucking monsters that
Peloton.
You're going to compete with fucking absolute monsters that can operate on scale. And if you're going to play their game, you're
gonna lose.
You're going to lose. You know, maybe you're the rare one person that's not going to, but you're going to fucking lose. But they have to count on scale going wide. You know, they can't go deep, right? So that's where I say the pricing is the issue, because now some of the online app type things that I've seen, they're creeping up, you know, 200, 250, some of them are a little bit more per month. They're creeping up, but that's a good thing, right? Because what that's going to start making some of the online people who don't use those platforms, they're going to start thinking, now, wait a minute, if they're charging $250 and it's macro, then I should be charging $500 because it's personal.
Right.
You know, because they go vertical. They go deep, man. They can go really, really deep. That's going to start allowing that price range to go up, where those platforms are going to allow people who, you know, 10 years ago, if you wanted to get into the whole thing, you just had to figure out Excel or whatever they do.
Right.
You know, and email stuff out. Now that's going to help with the ease of entry for people that want to do this, because whatever the coach has to pay, if it's commission based, whatever the fuck it is, it's probably not a whole lot. They're going to get access to an exercise index, which may suck, it may not suck, but it's probably better than zero.
Yeah.
You know, that somebody has. Or it saves the time from having to Google search every freaking exercise to be able to put out. So it's allowing the people who just want to kind of put their feet in the water to test the water, to test, is this something that they really want to be able to do? They're going to be able to make okay money, probably not great, but they'll okay. But it's going to help them decide, is this what I want to do?
Right.
Because once they get to that point, then they're going to be better at it too. so they're going to scale off of whatever that platform is.
Right.
They're going to be like, what the fuck is, or this just isn't me. Then it's a good entry point.
Yeah.
Right. But the clients aren't going to be what they're going to want.
Right.
Because that's going to be those. I guess what we're talking about is the Lifetime Fitness, Bally's Fitness of the apps.
Yes.
Is kind of what that is. Sale on volume, sale on scale, to where the private, not private, but the old school, like Gold's Gym, World Gym, or, you know, Murph's Place, TPS, stuff like that. That's that different experience. That's what we're talking about. We're just starting to see this form online to where what we're seeing glaringly is that the commercial gym, we're seeing that. We're only kind of seeing the basement back gym, no sign, you know what I'm saying? So,
right.
But that's,
you got to know a guy.
Yeah. And you know what? But that's where the best referrals come in from.
Yeah.
Is that. Which is interesting, though, to really think about, because I never think about it that way. We have the commercial end, which is set up, and there's a private end.
Oh,
there's
there
a lot.
definitely is.
There's a lot of private coaches right now killing bodybuilders left and right. But, sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
No, but it's true, right? Like things will always develop, right? And unless you are putting your hat in the ring, trying it out, and, you know, experimenting with different, even the social media stuff, like different types of posts, different types of content, talking to people, going out there, it's all going to boil down to getting someone to watch you, getting somebody to like you, and then getting somebody to trust you, right? Like that's kind of how sales are made, in a grander sense. Yeah.
I would try to push the trust up sooner.
Sure.
You know, but you're right. I mean, they gotta see you.
They gotta see you first, and then they gotta feel you out, and then they have to, you know, obviously, that trust has to be made before the sale, right? Because no one's gonna throw money at you unless they trust you.
Yes.
You know, to some extent, you know, based on the monetary requirement or the monetary level. You know, someone's trust, like, it's only $10. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Or it's like, this is $1,000 a month. Like, this is much.
Unless you become, you know, giant influencer.
Yeah.
You know, so that just on scale, you got to keep that in mind too. If you amass millions of followers and you just throw out one 10-page ebook, you know, doesn't even need to be that good, but there's going to be a whole bunch of those people that are going to buy it.
Right.
Just to support that person. So most people are not going to end up being that.
Right. Yeah. And that value, right. It's, and I think a lot of people get that, what do they call it? Paralysis by analysis when it comes to making things or doing things, without realizing if this piece of content or this video has one quality piece of information, it's worth it.
Well, the thing is, to go back on that is the one attribute that is very hard for any company to compete against. It's somebody else's hustle. Right. So we've talked about this before, just about, you know, individuals that are in the space that just call them influencers or whatever you want to call them. You know, you just got one person, maybe they have somebody that helps them do the editing, you know, that they contract out, but then the rest is just them, just fucking hustling like you can't believe, you know. So now when they're hustling and they're, you know, hustling their ass off 16 hours a day and they're posting all over the place and they're doing all that, that becomes very hard for a company to compete with, because how many people do you got to pay?
There's a cost,
you know, to be able to have that 16 hours covered of what that is. It becomes the competitive advantage of a smaller company or that individual over a bigger company.
Sure.
So for us, I see it as a competitive advantage, because I can go out and blast out 500 fucking Instagram things because I'm doing it. You know, I mean, you guys help with that, but for the large part during the busier times, I'm doing it, you know, so I don't have to go hire all these other people to do it.
Sure.
Like, I would like I'd like to, don't get me wrong on that. But when I'm doing that during, say, November, and you got all these Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all these other times, there's different buying peaks, you know, during each day. I'm able to take advantage of every single one of those peaks where a lot of my competitors aren't, because
there's too many links in their chain.
Yes, because they're shut down. They don't have anybody that's watching it 24/7, you know, whatever it's going to be. So now underneath, you know, and because we, in a weird way, we compete in the media space, even though their media is free. So we compete against the influencers that are just one person, and they're eating our fucking lunch because their hustle has got to be.
Well, their entire daily focus is on
is that. Yes.
Right.
But that's where, with the people that you're talking about, the point that I'm trying to make is the hustle always wins, right? It always wins. So let's say in a month period of time over all your social media platforms, you put out 150 different pieces of content. Granted, this can be a screenshot of something. It's just 150 different pieces of content.
Touch points.
Reposting, simply just all different types of posts. Microblogs, reposts, screenshots, small videos, whatever you want. 150. After 1 month of doing that, you can look through the analytics and say, look, these did really well. These did real well. These sucked. But if you didn't do it on scale and you only made 13, and then you're like, well, hell, out of the 13, I had 2 that did really well, but is that an outlier?
Yeah, that's a good point, right? Because if you don't have the data points, you can't make the decision, a clearer decision.
Yes, because there's a lot of different types of content. You know, there's quote posts, there's picture posts, there's video posts. I mean, I can go on fucking forever. There's product posts, there's, you know, all kinds of things. And all those things, they come in waves too. So and it's different for every brand. Like our quotes do really well on Instagram, then they just suck.
Yeah.
And then they start doing really well again. Then they just suck. So it's just, you know, kind of rotate through. But what the person doesn't want to end up doing is completely abandoning something, because to say it was working.
Any one thing.
Yes, because if it was working, then it stopped working. That doesn't mean it won't. Yes.
Yeah, it won't never work again.
Exactly. It most definitely will work again. And the things that completely failed sometimes are going to be the ones that are going to put you over the top.
Kind of sounds like training.
Yes, exactly. It's a lot like training.
Right? But you said that before, right? Like you find 2 or 3 main movements that work, that help you kind of push the, you know, or like the KPIs for your main lifts or whatever. And you use those sparingly to make sure that you can get through a training block or a peak or whatever, and then you just cycle in things. You know, it's just kind of seasonality of it, right?
This goes on. I guess we should, because it's a small demographic. Let's say there's people who want to get sponsored.
Yes.
Right. So let's cover those people. Say they want to get the attention of somebody that may be interested in sponsoring said person. Yep. Quit thinking that it has to do with the number of followers. Let's put that out there first. Everybody thinks, well, I only got 3,000 followers, 2,000 followers. Somebody with I'm trying to think of how to relate this better. The 1,000 people.
Well, it's like 1,000 fans versus 10,000.
Yeah, no, I get that, but I want to put a reference to 1,000 people. So I'm trying to use the football stadium, which is a bad example, right? Because, you know, say the end zone area is like 10,000. But I mean, if you stuck 1,000 people in your local grocery store, there's going to be fucking lines out.
Oh yeah, it wouldn't be near. It couldn't hold it.
They couldn't hold it. You know, it's a lot of fucking people. So if we think about if this said grocery store was going to do a sale, peas or buy one, get one free, and people love fucking peas wherever they're, wait a minute, fucking peas.
Quote that.
Fucking peas.
That's a piece of content, right?
Can you fuck a pea? Or would the pea go?
I imagine it would probably go in you. as opposed to you going into it.
Yeah, that sounds like an ER visit right there. There's got to be a TikTok channel for that.
Pee.
Frozen pee up the pee hole.
Sounds a little bit like a Pokemon, like a FuckAPea.
Jesus.
Clip it.
There we go. The FuckAPea. Okay, so if you're gonna go and you're gonna get the FuckAPeas, right? Think of how much revenue would be generated if those 1,000 people were there, even if only 300 of them purchased.
Right.
You know, most of them like, fuck it. That's what a lot of people have as far as their followers, but they look at it and like, man, it's just 1,000 followers. But those 1,000 people, if it's 500, 600, 700, 1,000, whatever that's going to be, you probably don't have a lot of people spam following you.
Right.
The people that are following you actually know you in some way. So if they said, well, who's Sam Brown? They could tell you. Your followers could tell you who you are.
Right.
There's that many. You start getting, tons of more and more and more followers. So I got 200,000 followers or whatever. Most of my followers don't even know who the fuck I am. I'll guarantee that. So you lose that, but people will kind of pull themselves out saying, I'm not really of any value to a company because I don't have the followers. Or I might know, wait a minute, if there's 700 followers, but you really like the product that we happen to sell, and 10 of those people actually purchase from us, that's a fucking high rate of that's more referrals than we get off most things that we do, right? So who's got the higher chance of that happening? The person with 700 people that know them, or the person with 70,000 people that get a new sponsorship, throw the discount code up, and people are like, oh, whatever. They
don't believe it. Yeah, they don't.
That's the first thing is, don't get caught up into that, because then what happens is you start posting stupid shit just to try to amass more followers, which I don't think are quality followers if you're trying to build a name in the industry or a presence or anything of that sort, unless of course you do social media, right? So I mean, we're interviewing social media people, so if you do social media, you probably want to have a decent social media following. I wouldn't say that an employer is going to want to see thousands of people, but if you got like 12, then let me step back to that, because they could be building somebody else's brand too.
Right,
so
for sure.
There should at least be some work experience. Anyhow, where was I going before that one? Because I just saw somebody that had 12, so and they weren't good, so it wasn't. Anyhow, okay. So with that, then go back to what we were talking about earlier, and just be you. Just be authentic. If you're going to say some shit that's going to get you what are they censored on
Canceled.
Instagram? I don't think they cancel them. I mean, they just censor them every now and again.
Right.
Then just fucking say it.
Yeah.
Get the post taken down, whatever. Don't stop being who you are just because it goes against whatever said dumbass policy. No, I'm not telling you to go out there and make every video, I don't even want to say it because I'm now being that person, right? Because I don't want to say the fucking COVID thing, to get a strike, but or any of that stuff. But don't curb your authenticity unless you have to.
Yeah,
right.
I think there is. The point should be to be you and to articulate who you are. Yes. Right within, I guess, the bounds or the means of the source that you're using.
Yes, but what I worry about right now is so many people are not being who they are because they're scared to be who they are for political reasons, one way or another way.
Right.
And what I don't think they understand is 80% of the people are fucking over all this bullshit. Whatever politics you're talking about. Right, we're talking about more than one little...
Yeah, we're just tired of having the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, there's like 800 different pipes that most people are just fucking done with it. But when I re-engaged back into Instagram and started looking at some of the people, it's like, just what the fuck? I mean, granted, I don't want to hear people rant about stuff. I have my own places to go listen to people rant on both ends of the spectrum for everything. I get my humor out of that. But it's like they're so fucking afraid to just talk about supplements, right? Or if they have an opinion on PEDs, or they don't want to say anything about that. I have my reasons, but I'll still have dialogue with that, with people just knowing where I'm coming from. There's so many, it's like, what the fuck happened to everybody? Like, you just want to reach through your screen and like smack them in the face and say, look, fucking wake up and be a human again.
Yeah, we're just having a conversation. We're just talking, right?
And that is what's going to appeal to a brand, is somebody that's just being you, because nobody else can steal you.
Yeah.
They can try to be like you, talk like you, and certain things like that. But as long as you're being authentically you, you don't need a patent or trademark that.
No,
it's just nobody can do it better.
Literally nobody can do it, and that's one of the best pieces of advice that we've could possibly give. It is that authenticity, and that will lead you to your potential clientele, or the people you want to work with, or whatever it may be.
No, a brand is going to want to see consistency.
Yeah,
so they're not going to go out and give these great luxurious deals of free t-shirts,
give you a helicopter,
free t-shirts and discount codes. If you're not being consistent. But
and that's what brands want, is to be a part of your consistency, right? They want the or the person or the influencer or the coach or the athlete to assimilate their product into their authenticity.
Yes.
They're trying to get their way into you being you.
Yeah, and the better brands, in my opinion, the better brands are going to want to see this person succeed.
Yeah.
Because the more they succeed, it's a good thing, but the more they succeed, the more people they're going to expose your brand to as well. So sometimes I think that, I'm sponsored all different types of people, but sometimes sponsoring the person that's reached the pinnacle doesn't do shit for you, because there's nothing to follow at that point anymore.
Yeah, there's no journey, there's no story.
Yeah, unless they have a lot of charisma and they have a lot of personality, or they have a lot of character. It's Dungdale was somebody that we brought on. That was towards the back end of his career, but man, this guy's character is fucking unbelievable. So it was worth that 1,000%, even if he never placed in a show.
Right.
But that's rare, because a lot of the other people, when you look at that top level, it's like, okay, what's the story here? What's to follow?
Yeah.
And it's that path, that people want to follow. That's what I'm telling people, to be authentic, because if they're a power lifter or a bodybuilder, they want to see you go through the same shit that they've gone through.
Yeah.
Right. And even if it's the first time somebody's going through their dieting shit, for a bodybuilder, and it's getting rough, the guys that have been through it, they're going to giggle a little bit to themselves, saying, oh man, I remember that fucking sucks,
Right.
But you know what? A lot of times, if you're being authentic, they may actually reach out and say, look, man, try this. And some simple, stupid shit, like Crystal Light sweet tea, whatever,
right.
There's something, there's these, I don't want to say these are little dumbass tricks, but there's some things that's like, people will tell you, like, wow, the fuck, why didn't anybody tell me about this shit? This is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And
I think people forget, in order to gain a following, you need to kind of be doing something worth being a leader for, right? Like you're not necessarily the best at what you're doing, but you're the best at being you, and you're providing somebody a leader, in a sense, to follow. Because what happens on Instagram when you see somebody's account and it says follow? It's like, what people forget what follow actually means.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like they forget that in order to follow somebody needs to be leading. Somebody needs to be doing a thing. Somebody needs to be having a story, having that journey per se. I know journey gets fucking thrown out everywhere, but the idea should be they have to be going in a direction worth being a part of that direction.
Yes. Right? Yes. A lot of times, a lot of the people that are posting, they don't have a lot of followers. So they maybe have 200 followers.
Sure.
I would have to believe in a lot of cases, this is just their training log. It's just a way to capture their training and put it out there, where for those 200 people that are following, they want to enjoy, they want to follow that experience, right?
Right.
So especially when it's that low, imagine if they didn't post. You're always posting, but then you don't post for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
You don't think people are going to be reaching out saying, hey, man, what's going on?
Yeah, right.
You know,
Absolutely.
so granted, you still have to have a personal life, but we are on the topic of social media. So
No,
I guess
for
we just
sure.
stayed on the topic of social media.
Perfect. I think what we'll do now is we'll pivot into the Q&A. We've gotten some super chats that came in. I think that will be a nice way to kind of jump into those. First one is, and guys, drop your super chats in the chat box here. We'll get to all your questions, and we'll shift into a Q&A now. TJ Carr, super chat. Thank you for doing these table talks. Love what you guys have to say and what the company stands for. Thank you, TJ. That's awesome. Next one up from Brendan Griffith. Thanks for all the hard work, guys. Really love the podcast. So just getting a little bit of support here. And Jay Bell, we got a question. What athletic metrics do you want to see in beginners before you think they are ready for barbell training? Anything like Wendler and his mile run, push-up, goblet squats challenge that he gives to his kids.
Well, I guess it's not going to really matter, right? Because the first thing that goes to my mind is, who is this beginner, right? There can be a 40-year-old beginner.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't necessarily have to be
But
kids.
I don't think that changes what I'm going to say, though. And I don't think it's going to change what you're going to say either. Because you got to read me the question again just to make sure.
So basically what he's saying is that how do you determine a beginner is ready for barbell training?
Okay. All right. So movement, how they move, you know, what their gait looks like, you know, it's just basic fundamental movement patterns. I mean, can they move? Can they do a body weight squat without coming up on their toes? And those are just the basic fundamental movement things, right? That yes, a lot of people, if they're older, a lot of people are going to be jacked up, right? So there's probably going to be some problems. If it's permanent, is it really a problem? There's going to be some things, you know, that you're just going to have to deal with that are because they broke their knee when they were 8. You know, there's just certain things that are going to be there that you got, and that takes a little bit of experience. And no, it takes education probably more than experience to be able to know which things to just say, you know what, this is cool. Yeah. This needs to be addressed, but that has to all be worked through. And then from there, I'm not as picky as what you're going to be or what Jim is, but it's only because the motivational aspect. I would like to see some body weight movements done clean. I want to see, 30 push-ups, either consistency or consecutively,
right,
or 3 sets of 10 with fairly small rest periods. I just want to see a solid base. Yeah, I just want to see solid reps. I don't care if there's 5, but usually there's 0. I do want to see that before bench press, but that's not a hill I'm willing to die on, because a lot of kids and adults, they fucking suck.
Oh yeah,
they're bad. And it could be 2 months till they can do a solid. It could be 3 months, because you got to take into the way I look at a solid push-up is this like a plank at the start. If they had to, could they plank this at the start? If not, I'm not teaching the push-up, because it's just going to end up being a worm, before it's over. Yeah. But the only area where I probably differ from Jim and yourself on this is after a certain period of time, they're just going to be so frustrated and not motivated that
I agree.
It needs to move to something, even if it's a machine press and stuff like that. But that would be my answer to that, is they have to be able to, maintain some type of internal stability, not a great deal, but just understand what it means to be tight.
Yeah, that's it.
Right?
That's really it.
That's it. If they understand that, and there's no inherent big ass problems, then I'll put them on it as soon as I can.
No, I agree. I mean, and that's actually coming out here. I have shifted quite a bit. before starting here, I would have spent far more time without a barbell, right? If their goal is I want to train with a barbell, I'm like, okay, cool. Let's see how you move. All right. Some form of, I don't want to even say assessment. I just want to see, like you had said, I just want to see them moving. I don't want to see their body awareness. I'll fucking throw a tennis ball at them. Can they catch it? Can they, you know what I mean? Just anything. Do they have any athletic background? Do they have any injuries that would get in the way of us being able to do the thing we want to do? Is their shoulder jacked up, right? Like, you can modify a barbell exercise in a way where they're still using a barbell, but it's not in a fashion that could get them hurt. At the end of the day, if they're getting stronger, like that's in there, and that's their goal, and they want to use a barbell, they don't want to do any other way, you can get them under a bar relatively quickly. But the idea is, if you're working with somebody and they're like, hey, I want to get really strong and I want to use barbells to do it, cool. Are you committed to this process? I want to see them work hard. I don't want to just give them the thing right away if they're not ready for it, right? But I also want to see like they're committed to the process. If you, for example, if I was working with somebody there, I want to bench 315 pounds. Cool. How much do you bench now? Never benched in my life. Okay. Like, we need to start in a different position than, hey, I bench 225. I want to bench 315. Right? There still could technically be a beginner. They could have just started. But the idea should be like, for me personally, I want to know that someone's committed to the process enough to do the things that would almost be like eating their vegetables before they get their cake, you know, and that's just more from a coaching perspective, right?
There's definitely different areas to discuss where, you know, it's different out here because we'll use, what do I want to call him today? Brian. So we'll use Brian. So Zach or whatever. We've called this dude so many different names now. I don't even know his real fucking name, but I think we're supposed to get the cookies tonight. But anyhow,
better.
The thing with him, and because that's probably shift your perspective a little bit too, is what you need to understand with that is when he was coming out, and he's 15, I believe, right? Yes, he was squatting. Yes, he was benching. Yes, he was deadlifting almost every single time that he came out. But at no time during that first 5 to 6 weeks was any repetition not coached.
Absolutely. That's a big
So there's the difference, right? So it's not just me, but it's me, it's you, it's Todd. There's multiple people helping, giving multiple cues, and grading all these things to where he essentially got 2 years of total coaching in a month. So if that's not there, that changes what we're talking about a lot, because those compound movements will form a base, you know, for everything else. The other thing to keep in mind with this answer is what's the goal? I mean, this is just basics here, but what's the goal of the person to begin with? Because the other road that we can go down is if a trainer just throws a barbell on everybody's back that comes into the gym, because they're a meathead like myself, and they love fucking barbells, and that's all they ever do. Then what happens if said client gets himself in a position to where they don't have access to said barbell?
Right.
When what you could have done is teach them all the fundamental body weight movements, lunging, push-ups, which we talked about. Everybody just thinks of these things as body weight movements, calisthenics. Well, think about, let's keep that vision and think about watching the junior high kids warming up for football practice, doing the shitty jumping jacks that look like horse shit, doing jumping lunges, which aren't really jumping lunges. They're just kind of like toe pushes, you know, doing the static stretch, doing the windmill stupid ass thing, which nobody knows what that is. Then maybe they'll do walking lunges as part of the 10-yard sprints and stuff like that, but yet not one of them's actually doing the actual lunge. They're doing the push-ups to where they're just falling on the ground, getting back up. The burpees are just, God forbid, jumping, just slam. I did them. I mean, I did them, and the whole best part about doing those burpees is how hard can you hit the floor, you know, or the ground. So what I'm saying with this is, yes, everybody knows how to do these body movements. No. yes, everybody has been exposed
Right.
to these body weight movements, but they have no idea how hard they can actually make them. I mean, a reverse lunge or Bulgarian split squat or walking lunge, they can be fucking hard.
Yeah.
If you maintain position, you keep tightness, you keep internal tightness, and it's no fucking joke. I mean,
Right.
they suck so bad you don't want to do them. They suck so bad. And we're talking about a walking lunge.
And it's that intentionality, I think, that's differentiating it from what they think it is versus what it can be.
Exactly. So now if you can teach those things, which are all scalable with a chair. So if all somebody has is a chair in a garage,
Right.
they can do a full body training session. Hell, they can do a full speed session as far as,
Yeah.
A skip speed, I mean, just running, shit. I once heard Bill Parisi tell me that he can train any athlete, just give him a chair in a small garage. That's all he needed, and he makes a good point.
Absolutely.
I can't disagree. So that's the other road, to know that these clients, whoever they are, if they're not coming to you for competitive reasons, should be exposed. I mean, they should still be exposed, but everybody should be exposed to the basic fundamentals of just body weight movements, which, I mean, it sounds like I'm kind of preaching to the choir, but it doesn't happen.
Right.
It just doesn't. And for the trainers who are working with them, this becomes tough because doing this online's got to be really hard because there's a lot of internal tightness you can't necessarily see that's associated with this. But if you're helping somebody in person, I mean, it's some of the laziest shit you can do. You just like pull up a little box, you just sit on the box, you like push on them here, push on them here. It's so fucking lazy. It's not like you got to change plates, grab dumbbells. I mean, you just sit down and watch ESPN and poke them every now and again.
Yeah.
It's fucking easy. So why would you not?
Absolutely. And I think just to clarify, I mean, the reason that Wendler has his standards or challenges that he has is because he has a room full of 80 kids, right? And he has to come up with a system to make sure they're the safest possible for the movements that he has planned for them.
Well, the other thing too, and this is with anybody that's worked with groups of kids before, they break shit.
Oh yeah.
So you need to have them moving. You do not want idle time.
No.
So they'll work in 3 exercise rotations. So basically circuits in a way, but they're always moving because they will destroy.
Like little locusts.
No, it's bad. It's bad.
Yeah. I've experienced nothing that big in terms of groups of kids, but I've had groups of 20 to 30 kids and it's like, what the fuck just happened?
No, he's got a good system. It's be interesting when we get him out again to talk how he's evolved it from the podcast that we did before, but he keeps them moving. He keeps them working hard and he keeps them keeping themselves working hard.
That's a good point to have too. Next question here from Pro Wrestling is Strong. Looking to add variety to off-season dynamic squat waves. Thoughts on using foam for box squatting with with 3-week dynamic waves. What are the benefits? So squatting to foam.
I'm all for it. I mean, I'm all for waving, however you do dynamic work. The foam is going to be different than the box. So, but it depends upon how you're going to use it. Todd exposed me the other day, but I know how to flex off of shit very good. So I can flex off a box. I can flex off a board. I know how to heave shit very good. What happens with the foam when I go through and I'll use cycles with that is I'll let it compress and then I'll come up before it fully compresses. That takes my ability to let my body come into it and then flex back out. It takes that ability for me to heave, for lack of a better word, and reduces it tremendously.
Yeah.
I hate that. I hate it.
Yeah.
That was
we saw that.
The fucking things that we did on the bench the other day is a form of that. You bring it down, soft touch the pins and press off. I fucking hate that. That's probably why I hate the deadlift, right? Because this is static fucking push. I hate that shit because I'm not good at it.
Explosive as
Right.
fuck, right?
So it takes my kryptonite away. So that's, to me, that's the difference between compressible foam, you know, and just the hard box. So it does play into that, as long as you're not sitting on it, letting it completely sink,
Right.
and then flexing back up. That's one application. The other application is if I'm working with somebody and they're having a hard time with, say, depth in an up call. Yes, you can always call people lower, but they still come up.
Oh, for sure.
You know, so it's, with this, they're going to start to feel the box on their hamstrings really high. Then they're going to hit it, and then there's a little sense of security. Like, okay, the box is here. If I go too low, I'm just going to sit on the box. I'm not going to fall over.
Yep.
And then that allows that to be able to come up from there. So that's the other application for it.
I like that.
The reason why we don't use foam and we use the Naugahyde is, to me, foam is the sponge, and there's nothing grosser than an ass sponge. And yes, so it's, and I sweat, man. So if my swamp ass is concerning that I don't even want to get on something with my own swamp ass, then that's why I put that on there, because I can only imagine how gross the shit is. Because I've seen, you know, like Westside had one in there, and that fucker had to be 10 years old, and
That's
it's like,
vile.
it looks like somebody took bites out of it, and it's gray. You know, it's like, what the fuck? This is just ass and more ass, and I can't handle it. You know, and
Really fucking gross.
it is fucking gross. It's an ass sponge. So putting it in there, I don't know with that. I don't know if you're going to have to change your percentages that you typically use. I think they can probably stay the same with that, but I think it's good to wave it in there.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Awesome. Next one from, this isn't even a real name. It's just letters and numbers. Jacob, you see it, right? 16 weeks from a meet where I'm competitive in my class. It looks like I'll be 2 to 4 pounds too heavy in fat for my class. How do you cut in a way that minimally impacts training this close to a meet? 16 weeks isn't that close.
No, 16 weeks is, he's 4 pounds over?
2 to 4.
He's 2 to 4 over? He?
Yeah, he, I imagine.
I guess it doesn't fucking matter, I suppose.
2 to 4 pounds. 16 weeks out.
Is there like a typo in there?
No, that's it. 16 weeks from a meet. Look at the list.
Read the question again.
16 weeks from a meet where I'm competitive in my class. It looks like I'll be 2 to 4 pounds too heavy for my class. So 2 to 4 pounds over. How do you cut in a way that minimally impacts training this close to a meet?
Okay. I'm going to answer this in a way that may be what he was trying to sell or say. And that is, let's say he normally cuts down. And he normally cuts down, and his normal cut is going to be 12 pounds.
Yes.
That's what his normal cut is. Now he's 4 pounds over the 12, which would be a way to say that I'm 4 pounds over what I'm comfortable normally pulling off at the last minute.
Yep.
Right? Because most people, I'm not a big fan of cutting weight for a meet unless you're going to break unless you're going to break some type of world record, or you're trying to qualify for something that requires a total in said class. Other than that, I'm just like, lift whatever you want to lift. It's supposed to be about getting bigger, lift more weight.
Yes.
So now those people that do cut and are fairly regular about it, they know their threshold, right? So they know exactly where that is. So he's a little bit outside of his threshold 4 months out, which does give a lot of time. But the problem is at that 4 months out, you need to start scaling the training, and the training needs to become a higher priority, which it's a good thing, but it also means that for most training protocols over the next 4 months, volume is going to slowly decrease, which other factors involved, calories will typically subconsciously increase.
Right.
You know, just you're training heavier, you're eating more, you know, so things that I would suggest is find a weigh day, you know, that is typically in the morning after you shit. So nothing can really interrupt what this weight's going to be.
Right.
Same day of the week, every single week. And then that's kind of like the mainstay of what that is and where everything's going. And try to have it on a day that's not going to be influenced by water retention the day before. In other words, it shouldn't be like, well, I was heavier because I just pounded tons of fucking pizza and beer last night.
Yeah.
Well, then fucking do this on a different day.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be the case.
Yep.
That gives you that tracking of that from that point. And then from there, and not a lot of changes have to happen.
No.
You know, so assuming that what I'm saying is right. Now, if it's just 4 pounds and it's just 4 pounds, then wait till the last week, just cut the 4 pounds or just don't cut it at all.
Yep.
But if it's over and above that, depending upon how lean the person is too, you're going to have to probably start now. You know, so the macros are going to have to come down just a little bit, maybe add in, you know, 4,000 extra steps. That's probably too much, 2,000 extra steps per day. So not a huge bit, but enough, because in the 4 months you can get that off.
Oh, for sure.
You can definitely get that off. But that all aside, the other question the person needs to ask is, with everybody that competes, and I'm going to say everybody, with everybody that competes in lighter weight classes, at some point in time, you got to go up. It just becomes detrimental. So say you start out at 148. So I saw this with Brian Schwab a few times. You know, it just gets to the point where he's cutting so fucking hard to make the 148s that the performance was never
right
what it should be. And then that comes that time where it's like, you know what, it's I need to go up. And usually by that time, they really don't need to gain a whole lot of weight, because he's probably at 185 or I'm sorry, he's probably 170. Oh
shit.
You know, before that.
Yeah. Right.
So then, and that's just what happens when somebody's fighting a weight class. So they get into that weight class, say it's 165, and just to throw arbitrary numbers out, they get in that weight class and they're 15% body fat.
Yeah.
All right. Then over the next 5 years, now they're 8% body fat and they're still 165.
Yeah.
Because they've held their weight at that certain point, but they still have to build muscle to get stronger. So they're still building the muscle in a very, very shallow calorie surplus.
Yeah.
But that still ends up getting to a point where the lean body mass will over and above be what they're able to cut. So they can keep fighting it. There's two things. They can lose muscle, which nobody's going to want to do.
Yeah, fuck that.
Or they're going to have to go up, or they're going to have to keep fighting it, where usually after 2 fucked up meets, and they're competing twice a year, so it's a year, they're already doing the math on what's it going to take to be at the same level in the next weight class up.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, I think just first step is finding that baseline, understanding like what you're doing now and if your body weight is going up versus staying the same, right? Because he's saying 2 to 4 pounds. It's like he could have weighed himself on one day and he's 2 pounds over. He could have weighed himself the next day or the next week and he's now 4 pounds over. It's like, all right, what if you weighed yourself another time the week after? Are you back to 2 pounds or are you going up again? Right? And I don't know where he's coming up with the math where I'm going to be 2 to 4 pounds over 16 weeks. Fuck, I don't even know what I'm having for breakfast tomorrow. Right?
Yeah.
Like, how can you really dictate, unless he's tracking everything and he's so in tune with what's going on, he will know based on what he's eating now, but you can't possibly know that.
No, it's still too
right.
hard.
It's just way too far.
No, there's too many other variables that can come into play.
Keep it simple. Understand where your baseline is now, and just start kind of just either increasing steps or adjusting your intake just a little bit, because over the course of 16 weeks, you can lose 4 pounds.
It's a fucking pound a month.
Exactly. So, and that will not affect your strength. That will not affect your training. It'll just it'll be just in the wash, right?
Yeah.
It'll just kind of wash out at the end. Next question we have is from Pineapple Pyro. There we go. So he's 4 months out from the meet. That's what we're looking at here. He's getting joint pain from his new program, and it feels like way too much volume. But he's still getting stronger, and the numbers are going up. Do you suggest that he cuts volume or switch program or what? What would you say if you're having somebody that's getting stronger, but their joints are starting to hurt?
4 months out?
4 months out from a meet.
Okay, so I mean, it's I would need to see what the skeleton of the program looks like, because at 4 months out on just a basic linear model, which most things are built on, that's going to be a hypertrophy type phase. So it's going to be a higher volume phase. What I would want to know is what comes next.
Right.
You know, so because yes, it could be creating these adaptation issues that we'll just call it for right now, which are maybe to be, I shouldn't say it's to be expected, but if you haven't done shit and now you're starting to do more shit, then it can be expected because the volume went up too fast from where it was before. So volume is like intensity. You know, if we're talking intensity as an expression of a 1 rep max, right? You're not going to go from 30% to 90%.
No.
You know, it's just, that's not how you physically structure the training, nor are you going to go from, you know, a volume of 30 reps, you know, per training day to 350.
Exactly.
You know, you just can't. So that would be where it is. So my answer would be, usually phases like that, if it's at this point in time, shouldn't be more than a couple more weeks. Look to see what's, you know, down the line, a couple more weeks, because you're getting stronger. This is for a meet. So the goal of the whole thing is to get stronger. So you're getting stronger, and see if it comes down. Now, if the volume doesn't come down, you know, the accessories, supplemental type stuff doesn't come down, which is a chance it may not come down, because a lot of times they only manipulate the main lifts. Then you're going to have to bring it down now, because it's going to have to come up.
Yeah.
You don't want to, the worst time that you want to start accumulating injuries because of overuse is the first block. You can't. You can't do that. I mean, it happens, but it's really fucking hard to recover from, because after this, you start getting into the 5s, you start getting, once you get into 3s and shit like that, you ain't recovering from any of that stuff. So
yeah, I think it also, I mean, depending on the type of program he's doing, I mean, like it goes into the volume conversation, but it could also be the frequency, right? He could also be, shit, like you went from deadlifting once a week to now you're on this program where you're pulling 3 times a week, or you're squatting 4 times a week and you're pressing 3, you know, say, like I would ask the question, what did you do prior to this? And then again, it's kind of similar to what you said, it's just to figure out where he's coming from versus where we know where he's going.
And what is the relative intensity of the weight that's being lifted? So with the excess, so say you're doing 5, 6 exercises per training day, and what I'm trying to say here is you can use half the weight, right? So if he was using half the weight, would he have the issues that he has right now? Right. So sometimes volume isn't everything, because you could add, you know, for somebody mobility deficient, you can add 150 to 200 extra repetitions of very light, full range of motion, low joint stress movement into their training every time they go in the gym, and it will help them.
Absolutely.
Because it's just movement, there's no weight. So that plays a role too. So that would be a conversation for him to have with whoever's helping him, is on these auxiliary type exercises, what should the effort be?
Right.
You know, how many reps in the tank, you know, whatever you want to say, because it just may be too much.
Yeah. And I think this is just a good scenario. I mean, just to anybody that's been listening for the last few minutes, it's like there are so many of those variables that you, in terms of your own training, it's like you need to be aware of. You don't have to be a master of all these things, but you need to be aware of all the things that can be manipulated in terms of that program from one phase to the next, right? Because it could also be he just competed and he didn't give himself a break between that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of factors.
There's so many factors, and I think that's good to kind of point out all of the possibilities that it could be.
Yes.
Without, you know, knowing all the details. We got 2 super chats that just came in, both from just thanking us. First one's Randy Malinowski. Thank you very much. He's from Canada. Thank you very much for that. And then we have David Bergner. He just said, thanks for all the info. So that was very, very cool. But yeah, I mean, that's a great spot to kind of wrap this one up. We can put a bow on this one. Any last words? Anything else you want to mention before we wrap this up?
I don't.
Okay.
I thought I did, but I don't.
Okay.
Again, thank everybody for the support. It's a crazy time. So the Black Friday sales, I'm trying to think of what we got going on. So
yeah,
there's always sales. Go to the site, check the site out, support us at elitefts.com.
Yep.
There is that. There's, I'm forgetting something, man. There was something I was going to say. Oh, well.
You think about it, and I think one thing we should mention before we wrap this up is people need to be on the lookout for the update to the articles and the columnist situation that we have coming out. We're going to be putting more information about that. For those who don't know, we have, I don't know how many bajillion articles up on our site. We are constantly putting out articles every single week, and we are updating our system in which we vet new columnists for the site. Potential team members, right? So if you've ever wanted to write for Elite FTS, if you've ever wanted to be a member of Team Elite FTS, be on the lookout for the information that we're going to be putting out everywhere in regards to our articles. And as always, check out elitefts.com for all of your training needs, but also your education needs as well. We put out articles multiple times a week, up to 5 or 6 a week now that we're doing. And we're going to be updating how we pick those writers, how we pick the columnists that will be featured on our site.
Yes. So there's that.
Yeah, that was
there is that. It's just, it's a weird time because it's for the end of the year, it's trying to close out, because
Right.
the business owner, you're trying to close out the year, at the same time, you're now getting into like the strategy planning of the next year, which sucks when you're kind of in the space that we're in, because I got to do all this at the same time, which sucks, but it is what it is. So my brain kind of gets all fucked
it's
up,
going in a lot of different directions.
with all that. But it's a good time to say, hey, what's perceived to be happening in the next year, because I won't say everything, but
right.
then again, I won't hide. I mean,
Yeah,
to me, it's like, no, we got this big shit coming up in 2 months. And then you wait and you wait and you wait. And you're like, this is your big shit.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't tell everybody you were going to launch a t-shirt with sparkle designs on it. Like this is the new thing.
It's thick on the butt.
It's just crazy, man. Like huge launch. Like this is not a huge thing. This is not a big deal.
Yeah.
But anyhow, that's where it is. But we could probably do the next podcast if people throw out ideas into the comments and stuff like that. I think, I don't know when it was, but it was me and somebody else. We sat down, we kind of laid out how to strategize, the training and it's the same thing I use in business for the full year.
Yep.
So it was not in depth. It's more of a broad overview, but that could be something I could probably rip out next time really easy, because I'm doing it right now with everything. So
Absolutely.
there's multiple steps with that.
Awesome. So guys, thank you very much for checking this out and joining us. If you're on YouTube, make sure to like this, share it to everybody you know. Subscribe to the channel, do all the things. If you're listening to this on the audio version, thank you very much for listening. And on behalf of myself and Dave, thank you very much for listening and watching, and we will see you guys in the next one.